On this episode, we have our first returning guest, paranormal investigator Dr. Melissa Morgan. She joined us previously with her brother. Well, you are a doctor. She joined us previously with her brother to talk about her former project, Destination Mystery. She's launched a new podcast, Death Becomes Us, with a new co-host, author, and tarot witch, Karly Latham. I hope I said that last name right. Is that correct?
Yeah, you got it right. Yes.
Awesome. And both ladies are joining us for a paranormal conversation. How are you guys?
So good.
Very good.
We love
having us on.
Yes. Yeah.
Good to see you guys.
Well, the first thing I wanted to talk about right out of the gate here is, Karly, you started out as what I would call a Mormon housewife.
Yes.
And now you are a tarot witch. So how did you get from one extreme to the other?
That is the most accurate statement of my life that there ever has been. I was a Mormon housewife. I have 3 kids, so that was my entire existence. Pretty much was just staying home and taking care of the kids. And then my family moved to Florida, and the house that we moved into was haunted as fuck. So,
Wow.
at like a quick synopsis of what happened, I met these new women and we were hanging out, and I had just such a weird experience. And I was like, I have to tell somebody, like, what is happening here? I've never felt anything like this before in my life. And they were talking about star charts and things like that. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but they seem weird enough to keep up with what I'm about to lay down. So I tell them this story, and they convinced me to bring a psychic medium in to cleanse my house. And then they were like, and she'll totally give you a reading while she's at it. And I was like, cool. I'm an ex-Mormon at this point. I was like, I don't know what any of this is. Okay, let's go. So she did it all. And then we sat down for a reading, and she told me things about my life that literally no one knew, because I knew it because I spent so much time thinking about it, but I hadn't told anybody that I felt these things. And this stranger is sitting in front of me, like stripping my life bare, basically, in a positive way. And then she stopped and she was like, they're telling me that this is going to be really important for you. And she handed me a deck of her own cards. And I was just like, okay, thank you. And that was my entrance into spirituality, which then led into the paranormal. Or I guess they both were the same time. That's it in a nutshell.
And I don't know if you guys know this or not either, but I am also an ex-Mormon. And Karly and I didn't know each other before we interviewed for this whole show that we're trying to project. And so it was kind of weird that we both were ex-Mormons and we've been able to communicate. We've been able to communicate through that. So it's been great.
Well, talk about synchronicity.
Awesome. I know.
Right? A little bit.
Right.
Yeah. We'd been working together for a few months before we finally put the pieces together that we were both ex-Mormon. And so we had very similar lives in terms of the way that we were raised, our belief system. And now both of us are like, well, I'll speak for myself here. All that noise, let's find it. So it's been really interesting because working with Melissa is so fulfilling, because we both understand where we've been, and we're both so open-minded and curious about all of the possibilities in front of us that when we investigate together, sometimes a theory is exciting and possible, but both of us know what it's like to have this is what it is in black and white, and leaving no room for the gray area that is the paranormal or life in general. So when we investigate, we both are open to alternate theories. What if it's not what we think it is? And that's kind of the way that we have gone into all of our investigations together, that it could be this story, it could be something else. Let's find out.
I love that, because you never have one solid answer. There's a lot of gray in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to be like I'll do so much research before we go into an investigation, and I'll be like, okay, this is what we're going to find. And it's not even close to what we find. It's something totally different. Like on our last
Yeah.
investigation, we found a little boy
Mm-hmm.
who seemed to be lost and who possibly, I mean, we don't even know for sure, but that is not exactly what we were expecting to find. And
Yeah.
it's been
What's
fun to
What's
investigate with
interesting about
Karly.
you bringing up that little boy is I don't remember if we talked about this on the previous interview, but I know that you kind of got started in this, Melissa, with like you were 9 years old or something like that, and you saw this
Yeah.
little boy who I think at first you thought it was your cousin, and then you realized, no, my cousin's over there. Who's this little boy? And then years
Yeah.
down the road, you have your own son, and you're looking
Mhm.
at him in a picture or something and thinking, wow, I'm having a flashback to this other kid that I saw that I think was a ghost, but now you were wondering, was I seeing like an image of my child, at that
Exactly.
time? And it's like, what is
Yeah.
that?
It was the weirdest thing. I remember riding my bikes around with my brother Steve, and I saw this little boy, and I was like, Steve, is that you? But then it wasn't Steve, and it was this little boy wearing overalls and a cap. And so I was like, okay, that's not my brother Steve, but I remember it clearly. It was it was the first paranormal experience that I remember having that I know was paranormal. And as a grown up, I took a picture of my youngest son, and I was like, that looks a lot like the little boy I saw when I was like 9 years old. But
Wow.
also, I just recently learned that my uncle or my grandpa's brother died on that property when he was young.
Oh,
Oh,
that
I didn't
definitely
I didn't
puts a
know that
different spin.
before.
so there
Yeah,
would
so
be
I'm
some
like,
similar genetics there.
Yeah.
yeah, was it him or was it like I really don't know, but I know I saw him and I remember it vividly, and that's the first paranormal experience that I vividly remember having that I knew was paranormal. So, kind of strange.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
one of those things where we may not have a definitive answer, but it's really neat to ponder what it could have possibly been, whether it was a view of your future son or possibly your uncle.
Who
Yeah.
knows? I really don't know. I really don't know, and I hope someday to find out.
So,
Hopefully.
how did you two meet each other and then decide that you were going to start this podcast?
We
We
actually both we were connected through our producer, who is an amazing woman. Um, we separately went through an interview process with her so that she could figure out who we are, kind of what we do, and just kind of would see if we would vibe well together. Um, and so yeah, it was several months in before we knew that we had so much in common because we were there. We were brought together by a third party, and now we do incredible work together.
we we interviewed for an audition for a
Mhm.
television show, and we have now done like two different trailers. Is that right, Carly? We,
I think,
we
yeah, we've done two different pitch reels. Um, it's kind of it's kind of changing and evolving as television and the media world evolves. And where we ended up was that we still wanted to be able to do this work, but we all live so far away from each other. So for right now, like our producers on the East Coast, I'm at the bottom of Texas, Melissa's on the West Coast. So it's a very wide distance. But we've still managed. We've done distance investigations together. We've filmed in person a couple of different investigations now, and we're hoping for more opportunities for both distance and in person investigations together.
Very nice. Well, you guys both seem like you vibe well together. Your personalities complement each other nicely. So, best of luck with that. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
feel like I feel like we do. We've investigated in New Jersey and in Texas both.
Nice.
Yeah.
And we've also investigated online several times. And we work, I feel like we work really well together. So we're hoping the paranormal and the TV world right now are just not doing well.
Yes, I
Uh,
understand what you're saying.
TV,
And let's
TV
face it. Here's what is popular. You go
Yes.
onto YouTube and you got the young people that are going in with their apps that are on their phones, and all
Yep.
of them have the same covers on their whatever episode they're doing. You know, it's a couple of young people with
Yeah.
and demon in big words above their heads. And they
Yes.
get, 600,000 to 800,000 views. And then there's us. And we're just like you ladies. We go in because we are scientifically interested in what's happening here.
Mhm.
When people ask me what a ghost is, I have no idea. I can tell you different things that I think it is. And it could be all of the above. It could be maybe this time it's this, maybe that time it's this. But I can't prove it to you. We're trying to figure out ways that we can prove it to you. But when it comes to investigating, it's not really something that people want to sit down and watch for like just an hour. For an example, we did a live show a couple of weeks ago in Casadega, spiritualist camp here. This is where the people who were in Lilydale would come down in the winter to, get warm, stay warm. So we had like a 14-minute Estes session that we were sharing with everybody. We get about 7 minutes into it and I'm noticing we're losing the crowd. So I'm like, I just cut it off and I told them what happens at with the rest of it. Cause it was really cool how it was going to end. But I'm like, we're not going to hold these people. And I'm like, this is the problem, is that people aren't really, they give me the action, show me the good stuff. They don't want to sit there for hours.
They don't understand the reality of it. They watch the TV shows and think that everything's just going to be bam, 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 bam.
Yep.
All this amazing proof and everything, but it's
They
not
want to
reality.
hear about the demons and the scary stuff, but guess what? That's not really what it is all about.
No.
Yeah, it's not always demons. And and Melissa and I both enjoy history. We like to know the history of a location. We like to know all of the details. We like to go deep in our investigations, and I think there is an audience for that, but you have to present it in such a specific way that I'm like, I am not the trendy YouTube gal, and that's I've accepted this about myself.
But it's one of the reasons that we love your podcast so much, is because you go so deep into the history
exactly
of the investigation, and that's the part that I really enjoy.
Yep.
I love to know the history of why this place could possibly be haunted.
Exactly. It's the combination of knowing the history, knowing what went on there, and understanding what an energetic impact those events could leave on a place or on a spirit. And I really liked what you said about not knowing what a ghost is, because same. I don't know. I could tell you that I could talk to dead people, but I don't know if it's really a person. I don't really know. I don't know who I'm talking to or what I'm talking to. I just know that I can give you answers.
Yeah, we all have different theories, and what may apply in this one particular circumstance isn't necessarily what's going to apply tomorrow in a different investigation.
And that's part of the whole thing of paranormal science. Like, we don't know, is it a ghost? Is it energy? Is it, something else?
Is it a tulpa? Did somebody create it by going in and manifesting with certain energy?
We can't recreate it in an environment where there's a laboratory that we can really recreate it in. So paranormal science is not easy to recreate, and so we're doing our best to figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, you probably, I was going to say, you ladies have probably had the same situations as us, where the most profound experiences that you've had are something that were very personal. So it's not like you get, like, even for Kelly and I, we can tell each other what happened, but we don't actually share that experience. And so it's kind of hard to share that with other people. So for you,
Yeah.
Karly, what would you say is like the most profound experience you've had so far dealing with the paranormal?
I'll say that I've had a few really deep, impactful ones. And much like you guys are saying, I was like, I don't even know how to explain this on the internet. And usually I'll roll up and be like, sup, I talked to this ghost, or, I have my method and my formats. But for me, my most impactful one was the first spirit that I got obsessed with. I love a mystery that takes me a while to unravel. I find it more rewarding if I have to work for the answers. And I like getting bits of evidence or information from various tools or from my cards. And then I like combing through and finding historical evidence to back up my theories. So I was living in Florida, and there is a very well-known man named Henry Flagler. And so one of my first investigations, I kind of tripped and fell into, literally and figuratively. I had broken my foot, and I saw another tarot account saying, my friend Eric, ghost hunter of South Florida, is going on a ghost hunt. If anybody wants to try pulling cards, go ahead and pull these cards, and see what you get. So I did that, and he messaged me, and he was like, that's actually fairly accurate. And I was like, cool. I didn't know I could do that, but all right. And from there, I started, kind of exploring on my own. But he reached out to me again, and he said, I'm going to this location, Yesteryear Village. It's been on Ghost Adventures. It's been on a lot of things. They have a Wikipedia page. And there, I didn't ask any questions. I was just like, cool, okay, And so I was pulling my cards, and I was like, this is way too much information. I don't know what to do with this. So I told him everything that I'd gotten. And then I said, let me try again, but I want to ask just one spirit to come forward, because the way that I work with my cards and the mediumship, when there's too many voices going on, it's very difficult for me to make sense of it, because I'm not actually hearing, I'm just processing through feelings, basically, right? Thoughts, feelings, pop culture references. And so I had gotten this very specific story about this woman, and she told me that she was targeted for her money, and she was killed, she was poisoned, and all these different things. And I just was so obsessed with her, and I wanted to know more. Like, who is she? If they go here all the time, why does nobody know who she is? Is it just because I rolled up and was like, sup, who wants to talk? Okay, only one of you, and she's the one who came forward. I don't know, And so I was unraveling this woman's life and looking up historical evidence, and I'm asking people for help, and I'm doing all of these things. And it's a long-winded story, but at the end of it, I identified her as Mary Lily Flagler, his last wife. He was married 3 times. She was his final wife. And after Henry Flagler passed away, she remarried to someone that she was connected to before she married Henry Flagler, who was in a lot of debt. And Mary Lily Flagler received quite a lot of money from her husband's passing. And so she was, in fact, targeted for her money. And her second husband, she died under suspicious circumstances. It was likely not natural causes. And her brothers forced it to court. Like, it was a whole scandal at the time. And so I'm spouting off all these things. I have no idea if it's right or not. I'm just like in the moment trying to figure it out. But the historical evidence is backing up what I'm saying. And like I've said it, and then I go searching and I'm like, okay, all right then, I think I figured this out. So my most profound experience was I had identified her, and she was still on my mind. I'd been to Yesteryear Village a couple different times by now, and my youngest daughter used to sleep in bed with me. And I had this dream one night, and I felt like I was seeing things through, I didn't realize it was her eyes until afterwards when I was like working out what had happened and processing, but it was very vivid. It's like I call it dreams with a capital D because it's different than normal dreams. And it was like she was showing me things and like showing me how she felt. And I woke up and I went, what was that? Like what? I've never had a dream like that before. And my daughter woke up shortly after to tell me that there was a woman standing beside my bed last night. And she said that she said she was pretty. She had her hair all up, like she put her hands on top of her head, and she described this like floor length dress with flowers on it. And I was like, what? I'm still in bed at this point. So I haven't made these connections, and I'm going throughout my day. And I was like, is that something that's possible, that she could come to me in a dream and be like, you were right. And since you did all this work here, this is how I felt. But then I looked at pictures of her, and there's pictures of her with her hair in the exact same style and in dresses that are so similar to what my daughter explained, that I was like, I can't be making this up.
Wow.
The coincidences here are too strong even for me. And that's never left me. I've had a few other experiences in like awake and in person, but the way that those things connected and the journey that I went on to get to that point was really impactful for me.
And it's cool that there's a history there so that you could verify it later.
Oh yeah, I love that part.
And always the best.
The one thing that Karly and I have noticed is that I do a lot of research before we go into an investigation. I know all the history, and she'll pull her cards and she'll do her thing, and I'll be like, holy shit, she is so spot on. It's not even funny. And then I'll
Wow.
tell her what I've learned about the history of the place, and it's crazy. And so I think it's like the two of us coming together is like synchronicity. I don't know what you call it, but we work really well together, and it's so exciting to see how well we work together, even though we're so far apart. And we've only met twice in person, but we've worked together several times on on not Instagram, but StreamYard or whatever. We've done several investigations together, but it's so crazy how the research that I do and the information that Karly comes up with align so well together.
That's very cool.
Yeah, very exciting stuff.
It's crazy.
And when we're together in person, the actual evidence that we're getting from devices, because we do use, my favorite tool is still my cards, but we use different methods, different investigation styles, different devices, and the information lines up. So it's one of those things where like I always say I am not a traditional medium. It's not as fun to watch me do my mediumship.
I think it is. I think it's amazing to watch you.
I love what I do, and I love what we do together. But yeah, it's definitely a different vibe, because I am more interested in uncovering the story about what happened there. I tell people a lot that if you are looking to contact your loved one, you're barking up the wrong tree. But if your grandma poisoned someone, hit me up.
Then I'm your girl.
I'm here for that.
I'll
Give me
get
the
to the bottom of
mysteries.
it.
Yeah.
And we've talked a lot about how Karly seems to attract the spirits that have been in trauma or need some help in that direction. I seem to attract the ghosts or spirits that have been told the wrong story and need their story told correctly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's important.
It is important. And it's like, well, I can tell you firsthand how much research goes into Melissa before we investigate together. And I love investigating. I love researching on my own, but when we work together, I go in blind. So I don't know anything in advance. And Melissa's like the secret keeper over there with her like binders full of information.
I have a whole folder full of information.
Yeah, but time after time, we see we've encountered these spirits who are like, yeah, it is me, but that's not true, and it's just like I kind of equate it to living people the way that like if someone was telling a story about you and they were getting it wrong, you would be like, hey, yeah, it's not right. And and like kind of correct them. But when you are across the veil, when you're a spirit, when you're deceased, whatever terminology you'd like to use for the situation, you can't really do that. And unless people, investigators especially, are willing to go in with the idea that maybe we don't know everything about this location, maybe we could go in with an open mind. They
Maybe
don't
we
get
have
that
it a little
opportunity.
wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's times when I'm like, this is what's happening. And they're like, no, it's not. But yeah, it's interesting because together we are getting the spirits of people in need who need to tell their story in one way or another. And I believe, and I've worked with a lot of other investigators who kind of go in with an open mind, but I believe if you go into a location and try to drop what you know, I mean, like that's hard to do because once you know facts, it's like, well, but this happened. So, but if you go in and you try to be in the moment with the information you're receiving, instead of trying to connect it to everything you know, that's when the magic happens. And that's what Melissa and I have been able to do pretty successfully multiple times, where we have had theories and ideas going in, or Melissa has, and I'll try to figure out things on the fly, but keeping that open mind and being willing to adjust and say, maybe I was wrong, means that maybe you get a new layer of the story.
Well,
True.
and it's
Yeah.
really cool when you pull a card and my equipment validates what you're saying. Because I have my spirit box, I have my EMF detector, I have my REM pod, all that stuff. And when it validates what Karly's cards are pulling, it's like, holy shit. This is
Yeah.
okay. Okay, we're on to something now.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. It's really cool.
It's always nice to get that validation.
Yeah.
With your
Yeah.
investigations, I don't know how much time you get in a location. Do you have like just one day? Do you get to have multiple days? Because, when you get to have multiple days, you kind of have the luxury of, because I can't decide if I'd like to know ahead of time or not, because we've had
Right.
really cool stuff happen either way. When we've known the stories, we've had cool stuff happen. When we have no clue if there's even going to be anything happening in this place and it goes crazy. So I can't decide which, but I'm like, I really would love to be able to do it like a show like Kindred Spirits, where you go in and you don't really know
Oh, yeah.
anything. Then you have a day of research and then you go in with a little bit more information. What do you
Yeah.
guys, what's your experience?
I love both ways, to be honest. I've done both and they've both been very successful. And it's really hard to say. Like, I love to go in with information, but a lot of times the information that I go in with, I'm like, that wasn't even what I thought was going to happen. And then we come up with something totally different, and I'll research it and I'll be like, oh, that's completely accurate.
Yeah, it's
So,
like 6 of one, half a dozen of another
yeah,
in terms of what you prefer. Yeah, we've had the same experience where sometimes you go in with the information and you get validated that way. But then there's other times where you go in blind, essentially. You get a bunch of information, you research it later, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow. And then you kind of go,
I wish I
I
could go
wish I
back.
already knew that.
Or,
Like, I
yeah.
wish I already had
Yeah.
that information when we were actually there investigating. But I mean, it's kind of cool both ways, in my opinion.
and
Yeah.
I love the fact that you mentioned kindred spirits, because we have been
I know.
investigating with Adam Berry.
Yes. I was gonna say that
Oh,
too.
awesome.
It was
And he is
amazing.
the coolest person to investigate with. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
He's been amazing.
Well, I actually was going to bring up, I remember watching the interview that you did with him.
Mhm.
Yeah.
When you had come on with us, Melissa, I don't think you'd had any kind of interaction with your father. And
No,
to remind
never.
the listeners, your father passed away when you were 2, right?
Yep, exactly.
And so for your whole life, basically, you've been waiting for some kind of afterlife
Yep.
communication from him, and you weren't ever getting anything.
No,
And then you're doing this interview with Adam Berry, and you could say maybe it was a tech issue, but it was getting glitchy enough with your camera that I was like, something strange is going on here. And then
yeah,
Adam's like, well, this happens every so often when I'm doing an interview. And the next thing you know, you're pulling out equipment and you guys are doing a paranormal investigation. And it sure seemed to me, based on the way the equipment was reacting, that your dad was communicating.
I think he was. And I've had several experiences after that that have verified all that. And it's not that I even really care that my dad's there validating me, but I would like to know that he's around and that he's okay with the fact that I've left the church that he was so involved in, and my family is still involved in. I want to know that he's okay with me being who I am, and like, am I okay? You know what I mean? Anyway, so that was very validating to me, and I've had several experiences since Adam's investigation that have validated, yes, I'm proud of you and I'm happy with what you're doing. So
Yeah, it's pretty
that's
special.
that's been very good for me. It's been something I've worried about for a very long time. So
Sure.
yeah.
I know one of the investigations that you ladies did was with Amy Bolesky, the
Mhm.
psychic medium. And it
Yeah.
got my attention because obviously psychic mediums are used to having some kind of supernatural paranormal experiences all the time, because generally speaking, they're speaking to people who are no longer living. And she had what she called on her property a butt puckering experience. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you caught my attention with that. For somebody to say I had something that did that to me after she's probably had
Yeah.
thousands of experiences. What was that like on her property for you guys?
We actually did a deprivation experiment with her where we had her put on some noise canceling headphones and we had some covering of her eyes, and we had did we have I can't remember, Karly, if we had a certain
We didn't do the frequency with her. We
we
did that
didn't do
with me
frequency with
later.
her.
No,
Okay.
hers was I think hers was no, I don't think she had any sound, just the noise canceling.
But we were
Right?
asking, yeah, we were asking questions, and she was coming up with stuff that I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
she is exactly spot on with some of the stuff that's happened on this property. She owns a very large piece of property in Texas that has a lot of different activity. I mean, we're talking about slaves, soldiers, Native Americans. What else? Like
Well, I think
I
she
mean,
had an
almost.
accident, like a modern day accident that
Oh
happened.
yeah.
Yeah.
We had
nearby,
car
too.
Yeah.
accidents, all
That
sorts of
was
things.
right by her property. And yeah, and she was right. The energy out there is, I'm curious to know what it's like now, but we were lucky enough to spend a few days there, and she's wonderful. She's fantastic. We had a great time, but the energy is like, when I showed up
We also had
haggard.
energy of elemental
Mhm.
of
Ah,
Yeah,
ele-
elemental energy. There was a lot going on that property. It wasn't a quick one and done. This is the answer to the activity you're experiencing. It was multi-layered. I showed up that day and I was haggard. I was so tired. I had a pretty major upset in my personal life the day before we were supposed to go out to film, and then I drove for like
8
wanna say it
hours.
was, yeah, 8 hours, and that was the day that AT&T lost their tower
Oh.
for, like,
Oh,
half of the
no.
day.
Yeah.
So and I'm, like, in the middle of nowhere, Texas, like, sweating bullets. I'm looking for every single Starbucks that I could see so I could pull over and use their Wi-Fi to reload my map, make sure I'm still going the right way. I showed up and I was, like, drained. I like, if somebody had looked at me wrong, I might have cried, and I'm not a crier. Like, there's nothing wrong with crying, but, like, I joke to my kids that I only cry when I'm traumatized because it takes a lot to get me to the point where I cry. And I was like on the knife's edge there. And we stopped and we had food together. Like, I met up with everybody. I started to feel a little better. And then we drove to her property and I was like, I don't know if I can work tonight. I'm so tired. And the second I stepped foot outside of the car, it was like a buzz of electricity. Like, I drink a lot of caffeine. I drink an unhealthy amount of caffeine, and no amount of caffeine has ever immediately perked me up like that again. Like, something on her land is just electric. And Melissa and our producer could see like a visible change in my face from the energy that was there. But when we went into the woods, I was like, okay, I see what you're saying. It's spooky out here.
And we had a lot of activity that night. Yeah,
Yeah.
we did.
Yeah. Yeah, we were out there
And
for several hours that night, trying to figure
there
it all
was
out.
there was actually a tree with a hole in it.
Yes.
And I was
Yeah.
like, is there an owl in that tree? Like, I see a face with big
Yep.
eyes. And we shone our light, like our flashlight in there, and there was nothing there. And I was like, I swear to God that I saw a face in that tree.
You did say there was elementals on the property.
Right.
There
So,
was
Yes.
I
elementals.
mean,
Yes.
was there an
Yeah.
int?
It did end up playing into it. Do you want to tell them about the Cato legend that
Adam told us, actually, Adam
Adam
Barry
is the one
was
who,
the
yeah,
who
so
looked it up.
we had a distance investigation with Adam on Amy Bruni's property. You can see clips of this on YouTube. I'm not sure if this part is out yet, so I don't want to give too much away. But basically, Adam joined us remotely, and Melissa and I had a chance to tell him what had been going on, what we thought was happening, and then we did our investigation, and it was incredible because where we were sitting, we had devices surrounding us. They were responding to us. They were going off. They were responding to our questions specifically. And as soon as Adam hopped on the call, everything around us went silent. We weren't getting anything else anymore. And everything around Adam started to light up. And
Wow.
so
Huh.
he had one of the most incredible sessions with the Franks box that I have ever seen. I've never seen anybody in real life with the Franks box, first of
They're
all.
very
But
rare.
Yeah.
yeah, they're very rare. But it just, the answers that he was getting. And then later we had a chance to talk to him again, and he said, well, have you thought about this aspect? Have you thought about that? And he turned us on to a legend. The Cato tribe had been pushed out of this land. They didn't move on their own. This land was stolen from them, not by Amy. This was like generations ago, obviously. This is a very long time ago.
Darn Amy. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. But it doesn't make it right now or then.
No.
But it's this legend that spirits would get lost in the woods and they would turn into these creatures who dwell inside of trees, inside of hollow trees specifically. And we are like, okay.
That's exactly what we just saw, Adam.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, that is fascinating.
And the other
shows you
weird
that
thing
synchronicity
is
again too.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the night before, Karly actually pulled some cards and they said, watch your dreams. Pay close attention to your dreams. And Amy was like, oh, I had the weirdest dream about these little creatures that like came into my closet and were like beckoning me to come forward. And we were like, that sounds a lot like what we saw in the tree.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. It was
really strange.
Interesting. Yeah. And that's one of those things that when we're investigating, I get trickles of information as we're going. So, something happens and Melissa and I discuss it and she shares information with me and I'm like, okay, well, but this is one of those moments that I don't know how Melissa could have researched that ahead of time, or figured out a theory ahead of time. But when you're in the moment and you're saying, okay, this doesn't fit. Like, this is one of those things that could easily, if you were a certain type of investigator, be like, this is demonic. This is a demon. That's a demon tree, But if you step aside from that, like, I never knew that piece of history. I never knew that legend. And we got to learn about a culture that is different from ours, and that is something that's awesome and unexpected.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and the Cato tribe actually believes in these entities that become what looks like a little boy that wanders the woods. And we thought, oh, maybe that's what Amy was picking up on. Is there a little boy that we have somehow missed? Did something happen to him? And it turns out that we feel like we really caught up on this little boy that perhaps was accidentally murdered or accidentally drowned.
Yeah, we got a very specific story from him. And that'll all be coming out if you follow Death Becomes Us on YouTube, on our YouTube page. Yep. But that one took quite a while to unravel. And there was a few times that it felt like we were dealing with an entity who was masquerading as the same little boy. So we started calling him Mike, not Mike. And
I like that.
Well, yeah, at first it seemed like Mike was not a very good guy. And then we're like, wait, maybe this isn't Mike. This is somebody else. So we called him Mike, not Mike.
Mike, not Mike. Because it seemed like there were two very different energies. Like when the not Mike would come in, everything felt darker, for lack of a better word. Everything felt darker. It was a little more on edge. You felt like someone was standing really close to your back and you get those tingles and that like creeped out feeling.
Intimidating.
And then yeah, exactly. So we had this whole long session where I was in the dirt. I was talking to him like I've done with other spirits of children before. And I was like, talking like a mom, like, I have a boy at home and like, what's your favorite color? And do you want to draw pictures with me in the dirt? And, things like that to like encourage a safe environment.
Engage.
And I was doing an Estes session at the time. Yeah.
So we were getting responses from him. He wasn't necessarily answering my questions, but there was a shift. And I was like, I don't know that this is a child, but it was still answering as Mike, right? And so at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm going to poke the bear. I'm always respectful in investigations, but I will say that if there is like, if you are the spirit of a serial killer, or if you are some sort of dark being, I see no reason why I shouldn't poke at you.
You don't
Like,
deserve respect.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And Karly
So,
poked.
yeah, I started poking, and I was like, why would a grown man why would a grown man pretend to be a child, and things like that. But it was the whole process to unravel. And at the end of it, I think that we have like a solid answer for what was going on with that particular situation. And I think that energy was the butt puckering that Amy described. I think there was a few other things too, though. Like, there were multiple tribes who previously occupied that land. That was their home, and they were forced to leave. One tribe was forced to leave from another tribe, and then white people moved in and kicked them out. And there was a lot of lingering resentment and sadness and grief over losing their home. And so, we did our best to communicate with them too, and say, like, just try to let them know that we know that what happened that it's not right. That shouldn't have happened. And we're sorry that it did.
We did a little thing where we honored them by presenting some, what did we do? We honored them with
It
some
was loose leaf tobacco. Melissa and I went on an adventure to find the tobacco.
We went and bought tobacco. And we were trying to honor them and letting them know, hey, we're really sorry about what happened to you and your land, and it wasn't okay. And we want to let you know that we're sorry about that, and we hope that you're all okay and you can move on from all this. So we did a whole thing about that, and we feel like it helped. I feel like it helped.
Yeah, I feel like after that is when we got more clarity on the Mike situation. My timeline could be skewed, full disclosure. But yeah, but it's one of the most unexpected parts of working with Melissa and with Death Becomes Us, is that we've gone into a lot of these situations and a lot of these conversations expecting to only talk about ghosts and the paranormal. And we keep finding ourselves deeply involved in conversations around trauma. The trauma demons were working their way out of my throat just now.
It's
Sounded
literally
like
not
a beast from hell.
right. It's not what we're expecting to find. It's really not.
It's a constant surprise. But yeah, all of the people that we've had the honor of interviewing, is story after story after story, are people who have, in one way, shape, or another, had their world shattered and are looking for answers outside of what they know. Much like Melissa and I, we left our religions. We both have had our other ups and downs, and we're curious. We want to know what there is that's not the story that we're fed every day. We want to go into the gray areas, and that reflects in the conversations that we're having with people. Most of the time it's accidental, because we don't go in being like, what trauma do these people have? We're just like, this person is so cool, I can't wait to talk to them. And the investigations, we end up finding these little nuggets, and we're like, I'm sorry that happened to you.
Well, and I do all this research thinking this is what we're going to find. And guess what? It's not what we find. It's something totally different. And so it's kind of cool to see, like, how Karly and I work together to figure out what it really is that is going on in these areas that is causing the paranormal activity.
Well, and let's be honest, there are a few spirits or what have you that may be sticking around a place because they really loved it in life. We have found a few stories like that, but mostly people are
True.
sticking around because there is some kind of trauma that's been involved, something they don't feel
Yeah.
that's been finished. Their life came to an abrupt end that they weren't expecting, or there was something else, war, what have you. And I find it really interesting with you guys going in there, because if people were to ask you, what is your point of going in and investigating? I know for myself, a lot of early on was I just wanted to know that there really was something there. I grew up as a Christian, so I believed that something about us continues to go on, but it's always kind of reassuring to have something that, proves that to you or shows you that there's some kind of possibility there. And it seems like early on, when you'd see a lot of the paranormal stuff that was out there, when we were kids and things like that, it was, well, this medium is here to cross somebody over. And I always wondered about that, because I'm like, can another human cross somebody over? And do you have a right to do that? And is that even what you should be doing? And I get the feeling that you
No.
guys aren't going there for that kind of a thing, or even necessarily to have something proven to you, is so much that you just want to tell the spirits you were heard. And I think for a lot of them, that's what it is. I think when you have people that's why we like to go into places that people haven't gone into a lot, and like to
Yeah.
touch on places that people haven't heard about. Because at this point, if you go into Waverly, I don't know what you're talking to, because so many people
Right.
have been in there and brought so
Right.
much of their own crap in there.
I love those theories too, that because I do believe that most hauntings are human generated, like not all, because they're look at the work we do, all of us.
Right.
We all know that it's something.
Yep.
We may not be able to define it, but I think that there are spots like Waverly that it was there originally a haunting. Probably, yeah. Is it extra haunted now because of the stories that we tell?
Because
and
we've
feed
created
into
it.
Yeah.
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 Exactly.
Yeah.
And all that
But
energy. I mean, you have people going in there for hours and hours every single weekend. It's going to generate something.
And
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not our job to cross people over. If they're not ready to cross over, that's not our job to figure it out.
Yeah.
But I think it helps us to tell their story. If we can figure out what their story is and let other people know, that really helps to help them to know, okay, maybe.
I think it's healing to them.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
Exactly.
agree. Yeah. And I'm on the same page as Melissa. I actually won't even attempt to cross the spirit
No.
over. I don't think it's my job. I will communicate with them. If other people can, that is your practice. That is your right. I'm not speaking about other people's, what they go in and do. But for me, when I go into location, it just seems silly to think that I could dictate when somebody's going to cross over the veil, like, who am
Well,
I?
and
No.
do we even know what that means? Like, we don't know
Well,
what that
yeah.
afterlife is
That,
like.
yeah, that's the other part of it too. Like, I have theories that some spirits are only a portion of a person's soul. The rest of them may have
Right.
moved on, and you're only talking to the part of them that experienced the trauma. There's
And-
so much that goes into it. But along those lines, Melissa and I both, it comes down to storytelling, telling the stories of the spirits that we encounter, because it is healing. I mean, like, if you think about it, well, I'll use my work as an example because that's easy, but most of my work revolves around, I talk about what's happened to me in roundabout ways, but I also create an environment where I hold space for other people to tell me their stories, because sometimes it's like poison, and it's like, I just need to get this out. I need to get this out of my body. And imagine being stuck like that for hundreds of years, just waiting for someone, and all these people are coming through and are like, oh, you're haunted. And just waiting for someone to say, tell me what happened to you, instead of saying, why are you here, or whatever, like, I do that sometimes too, but it's a different, it's like being Casper's dad, or the dad from Casper, instead of a Zach Baggins.
Right.
None of us know exactly what's going to happen in the afterlife. I mean, we really don't. And like, I remember going to the Wyoming State Prison, and we were called to the women's ward, and there was a woman there who had had not had her story told correctly. She was actually written in a book. There was a story all about her, and it was not correct. And so that's why she kept sticking around. And so when we finally told her story, was she okay with that? I don't know. But I feel like those are the kind of people that I attract. Those are the kind of spirits that I attract. I want to be able to make sure that they have the ability to tell their story the way it's supposed to be told.
Excellent.
That's my
so
goal in
important.
life.
Yeah.
So, do you guys have like a bucket list of a place that you would love to get into to do some investigating?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Loaded question.
I I want to go anywhere and everywhere. Like my actual dream, it's kind of put on hold a little bit because my older two kids are very involved in their extracurriculars, and I want to support them in that. But my ultimate dream is literally to have a big RV, pack up my kids, pack up my giant dog, drive around and visit as many places as I can possibly see and document them. But my ultimate bucket list item is Hever Castle in England.
Oh, that would be
I
a good
w-
one.
I would love to go there. Oh, anywhere in England, really, but Hever Castle specifically because I am obsessed with Anne Boleyn. I could tell you the entire history of the Tudors literally right now. I won't because we'd be here for hours. But she haunts it, and I want to go there, and I want to go to her gravesite, and I want to go to where she was executed. And I don't even have to investigate. I just want to be where she was.
Cool.
My biggest bucket list item is Chernobyl because everything was just left.
Mhm.
Like
Right.
everybody just vacated, right? So if I could go in there without experiencing any
Your hair
Fall
falling
out.
out.
right.
Fall out literally.
Not getting eaten by mutant rats, which my children just
Exactly.
informed me are there. And I was like,
Oh.
okay,
Nice.
our USs
can't
are
even-
real.
I can't even imagine how cool that would be just to go see the apartments and the buildings and the
Frozen in time.
Yeah.
everything. Yeah. But also I am to go to Italy and experience where's the place where the volcano blew up?
Pompeii.
Oh, Pompeii.
Pompeii. Oh my gosh. I couldn't even remember the word. I'm going there in a few days.
Oh,
Oh, excellent.
awesome.
Amazing.
And that is
nice.
another one on my bucket list that I'm very excited about just to see. I've heard so much about that place, and that would be
Yeah.
the other one on my bucket list. So I get to cross that one off. I don't know that I'll ever get to cross Chernobyl off my list, but
Yeah, I doubt that's going to be a really
Yeah.
tough one. I think I've seen one group that's gotten in there,
Yeah.
and
Full
But that
hazmat
would-
suits and
Tourism.
everything, probably.
yeah,
that would
that
be my
even,
bucket list.
I think was it an Unsolved Mysteries that they were talking about the ghosts
It-
after the tsunamis in Japan, and I think there
I
was a
know-
place there that was like deserted, and they would go in with a one of those Geiger counters
Yes,
to make
I
sure
I know-
it's safe for the
that.
I know
tourists to
Josh
come in.
Gates
Yeah.
went there.
Okay,
Okay, maybe it was
maybe
that.
that's what I
can't-
saw.
Yeah, and
And I was like,
they
if you
found
need to
some
take
pretty
a
cool
Geiger
stuff.
counter in before I come in,
Yep.
maybe no.
Maybe no.
He did, and then it actually went off, and he was like, "Oh, we got to leave because it's been
Been here too
we've got too
long."
much radiation." Yeah, but if I could go in there without all the radiation stuff, I would do
That
it
would
in a
be
heartbeat.
so cool. Yeah.
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 Well, Karly and Melissa, thank you so much for joining us. Will you let our listeners know where they can find out more about not only your podcast, but also each of you individually, where they can follow you on your social media?
Yeah, if you could please follow us across all platforms. We are Death Becomes Us podcast. You can watch us on YouTube. You can listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts. Your support helps make it so that we can do more of these investigations together. And this is what we are more passionate about than pretty much anything. Like this is our jam. You can find me at Karly, that's Karly.Latham on mostly just Instagram is where I'm most active. How about you, Melissa?
You can find me at Melissa the Ghost Doctor on Instagram is where I mostly post. I do have a few things on TikTok, but I don't know how to use TikTok very well, but I'm learning. And my son is trying to help me.
Yeah.
But yes, if you could follow us on TikTok and Instagram and
YouTube, for
YouTube.
Death Becomes Us, please. And
Yes.
thank you.
And any place you listen to podcasts, we have quite a few episodes out, and they're pretty good. They're pretty
Yeah.
good
Oh, and you guys
episodes.
have talked to some great people. I just listened to the one that
Yeah.
you did with My Bloody Galentine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
my God.
That one
she's
was so
great.
good.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Yeah.
phenomenal.
I loved
And if
that
you don't
conversation.
follow her, she's amazing on TikTok. She's really fun to.
She is.
I'm
Yeah.
Really
still
fun
not
to look.
convinced to bring in any haunted dolls, though.
I would.
I would too. Yeah, I would too. If I wasn't, I live with my kids and I live with my parents right now. And if I wasn't in my parents' house, I would 100% be like, send them my way. Let's have some fun. Let's see. I don't know.
Test the theory.
I'm sorry.
I'm
Ventriloquist
here for it.
dummies whose mouths fall out. No.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. Nope. Mm-mm.
That, yeah.
I'm
So
all for
creepy.
it. My husband would not be happy with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But please follow the podcast, especially on YouTube, because we are hoping to have fresh investigations. We're trying to figure out different ways to translate what we do to audio, and obviously we're mostly behind desks, so we are working very, very hard to bring y'all new content and new investigations that are exciting and that we can investigate with you even if we're from a distance. So
And let us know what you want to hear. Yeah.
yeah. If you've had any paranormal experiences that you want to tell us about, there is a spot where you can submit those stories on our website. So yeah, just let us know. And thank you so much for having us.
Well, it's been a pleasure. You guys are great.
Thank you. We really appreciate you having us on your podcast.